city was alive with energy, its wide streets bustling with tourists and locals weaving through the vibrant downtown. Lito Rojas marveled at the towering skyscrapers and modern architecture, a stark contrast to the provincial charm of his hometown. This was his first trip abroad, a celebration of his recent achievements. His sister Ana, who had traveled the world more than he had, walked beside him with a protective air, pointing out landmarks and offering tips for navigating the urban sprawl. Lito carried a small backpack filled with souvenirs and a guidebook he had been consulting throughout their trip. His polite demeanor and genuine curiosity made him a favorite among shopkeepers and fellow tourists. Anna's confidence balanced his humility, their bond evident to anyone who observed them. As they turned onto the city's main shopping street, the vibrant crowd began to thin. Officer Peter Collins stood at the corner, his sharp gaze scanning the passersby. Outwardly affable and well-liked by certain members of the community, Collins had another side, one that surfaced in encounters with foreigners and anyone he deemed out of place. Collins's eyes locked onto Lito. Something about the man's quiet demeanor and simple attire triggered his suspicion. Without hesitation, he stepped into Lito's path, holding up a hand. "Excuse me, sir, can I have a word?" Lito stopped, confused but obliging. "Yes, officer? Is there a problem?" "Let me see some ID," Collins said, his tone brusque. "You look suspicious." Anna frowned, stepping forward. "Suspicious? He's just a tourist. What's this about?" Collins ignored her, his attention fixed on Lito. "What's in the bag?" he demanded, gesturing to Lito's backpack. Lito hesitated, unsure of how to respond. "Just some souvenirs and my guidebook," he said, unzipping the bag slowly to comply. "Souvenirs? Huh?" Collins's voice was laced with skepticism. "Mind if I take a look?" Before Lito could answer, Anna's voice cut in sharply. "He already told you what's in there. Why are you singling him out?" Collins turned to Anna, his expression hardening. "Ma'am, step back. I'm conducting an investigation." The commotion began to draw a small crowd. Miranda Garcia, a social media influencer known for her activism, was among them. She recognized the telltale signs of an unjustified confrontation and instinctively began filming with her phone. Collins rummaged through Lito's backpack, pulling out the souvenirs and leafing through the guidebook. "You're not from around here, are you?" he said, his tone dripping with condescension. Lito's jaw tightened, but he kept his composure. "No, I'm visiting from the Philippines." "Figured as much," Collins muttered. "You've got to be careful. Can't have people loitering around looking suspicious." Miranda's voice rang out from the crowd. "Suspicious for what? Being Filipino? Or carrying a backpack?" The crowd murmured in agreement, their growing disapproval emboldening Anna. She crossed her arms, her tone firm. "My brother isn't doing anything wrong. He's just enjoying his trip. Why don't you harass someone else?" Collins bristled, his authority challenged. "Ma'am, if you don't step back, I'll have to detain both of you." The tension reached a boiling point when Anna, her voice steady and deliberate, said, "Do you have any idea who you're talking to?" Collins smirked. "Oh, do tell. Should I be impressed?" Anna's eyes narrowed. "Lito Rojas, nephew of Ambassador Javier Rojas. He's here to see how your city treats its visitors. And you're doing a fantastic job of making an impression." Collins froze, the weight of her words hitting him like a freight train. The crowd's murmurs turned into audible gasps as Miranda's camera zoomed in on the officer's face, capturing every flicker of panic. "You're kidding," Collins said, though his confidence had visibly deflated. "Do I look like I'm kidding?" Anna shot back. The crowd's energy shifted. What had begun as passive observation turned into open disapproval. Miranda spoke loudly enough for her camera's microphone to pick up. "This is exactly why we need to hold people in power accountable. Harassing an innocent tourist because of their background is unacceptable." Collins stepped back, struggling to regain control of the situation. "Listen, I was just doing my job. Let's not make a big deal out of this." "Not a big deal?" Miranda's voice rose. "You racially profiled someone, insulted them, and embarrassed yourself in front of half the city. I'd say that's a pretty big deal." As the crowd grew larger, a police car arrived and Captain Sheila Dawson stepped out. Her calm but commanding presence parted the crowd as she approached. "What's going on here?" she asked, her tone neutral but firm. Collins turned to her, his face pale. "Captain Dawson, I was investigating a potential suspect." Dawson held up a hand to silence him. "I've already received complaints. Let me see the video." Miranda stepped forward, handing over her phone. Dawson reviewed the footage in silence, her expression growing grimmer by the second. When she finished, she turned to Collins, her voice icy. "Officer Collins, return to the precinct immediately. We'll be having a conversation about this." Collins opened his mouth to protest but thought better of it. He gave a curt nod and retreated, leaving Dawson to face the crowd. "I apologize for what just happened," Dawson said, addressing Lito and Anna directly. "This is not how we conduct ourselves, and I'll ensure there's accountability." Lito nodded, his voice steady but tinged with emotion. "I came here to learn about this city, to see its beauty and culture. But this is what I'll remember." Dawson's expression softened. "I hope we can make it right. If there's anything I can do, please don't hesitate to ask." As Dawson escorted Lito and Anna to a quieter area to ensure their safety, Miranda's video continued to gain traction online. Within hours, it had gone viral, sparking a wave of outrage and solidarity. The hashtag Justice for Lito trended globally, with users demanding systemic changes and stricter oversight of law enforcement. The next day, news crews camped outside the precinct, eager to interview Lito. He declined most requests, but agreed to speak at a community forum organized by local activists. Standing before a packed hall, he shared his story, his voice steady but passionate. "What happened to me isn't just about one officer," he said. "It's about how we treat each other, how we see people who are different from us. This city has so much to offer, but we can't ignore the flaws that hurt its people." The audience erupted in applause, their support a powerful testament to the unity sparked by his experience. Meanwhile, Captain Dawson's investigation into Collins's conduct proceeded swiftly. Faced with mounting evidence and public pressure, Collins was suspended pending a formal review. As Lito and Anna prepared to continue their trip, they reflected on the whirlwind of events. "I wanted to learn about this city," Lito said, "and I did. But more importantly, I learned about its people, the ones who stood up for what's right. That gives me hope." Anna smiled, her pride in her brother evident. "You turned something terrible into something meaningful. That's what matters." Together, they walked down the bustling streets, their resolve stronger than ever. Lito's story became a rallying cry for empathy, accountability, and change, reminding everyone that even in the face of adversity, unity and justice could prevail.